Hello, this is Jane-janette Ansah.
And Emily Rizzo, and you're listening to the People Power Lunch Hour live on PhillyCam TV and WPPM.
The People Power Lunch Hour is a weekly talk show produced by PhillyCam that engages the community and highlights local organizing, social movements, nonprofits, and local issues. We broadcast live every week on Comcast and Verizon TV and on WPPM 106.5 FM from our Center City studios.
This month, our theme is gun violence. On today's show, we are joined by Rosalind Pichardo, founder of Operation Save Our City, and Gilberto Gonzalez, documentary filmmaker and creator of the film series Get Woke Philadelphia.
Today, we will learn more about how both Roz and Gil are working to combat ending gun violence in our city in this edition of the People Power Lunch Hour. First, we're going to show a short excerpt from Gil's film featuring Rosalind.
There's a city that's known, and there's a city that's unknown. And the city that people try to forget is the city that's suffering the most, and that's Kensington. And that's the urban part of the cities who are struggling with the opiate addiction, with homicides, and with crime and rapes, and all these things, and sex trafficking, and things that people don't want to talk about. People don't want to talk about the ugly. But the fact is that the ugly affects everybody in the inner city, and it would eventually trickle out into the city that's known. So I think it's important that people pay attention.
Welcome back to People Power Lunch Hour. In the studio with us today, we have Rosalind Pichardo, founder of Operation Save Our City, and Gilberto Gonzalez, documentary filmmaker and producer of the film series Get Woke Philadelphia. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. So Roz, let's start with you. Operation Save Our City is an organization that works with families of murder victims, helping them to cope with their loss while working to bring the individuals responsible for the crimes to justice. Roz tries to break that cycle by sharing wanted posters for individuals sought in homicide cases. Operation Save Our City addresses gun violence and senseless killings in Philadelphia. Stats actually show that in 2019 so far, about 500 people have been shot, 19% of that being fatal, so that's about 112. In the first clip that we just saw, Raj, you said that there's a city that is known and a city that is unknown. Can you explain to us what that quote means, what it means to you, and how it relates to gun violence?
So I think, well, in Philadelphia, particularly Kensington, and even it's actually in West Philly as well, but not as bad as it is in Kensington. A lot of folks kind of already written off the people that live in Kensington, as if, they're not a part of this city. But the reality is that the people in Kensington are suffering a lot, either with the gun violence and the unsolved cases, and with the opiate addiction, the crisis that's happening there, and the amount of homelessness that's taking place in Kensington. You got hundreds and hundreds of people who are sleeping on the streets with nowhere to go and with no treatment available for them. So it's a city that people really a community that people try to pretend that they don't exist.
Right, so that's the city that's unknown.
That's the city that's unknown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And as a resident, I see it every day. So to me, it's pretty much is known for me as a resident and as a voice for a lot of people who've been affected by it. It's my obligation to share the stories of people that need to be heard.
In the documentary film that Gil made, you actually said that eventually that's going to trickle out into the city that is known. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that and how that would affect the community?
So right now, what's happening is that a lot of gentrification is happening right now in Kensington.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So now everyone is leaving Kensington and they're going into Center City. I just was informed that there's a new encampment being set up right off of Vine Street near Community College. So, and then you have the other small encampments that's happening on near Packer Avenue, and you have ones underneath 95. You have all these little encampments being built just because they were chased away from a place that's being gentrified and already pushing our people out. So it's going into places where people they don't want people sleeping on their steps. They don't want people using heroin. They don't want people committing crimes and doing certain things that's not, that's not right.
Yeah.
But also, our kids have to see some of these things. But if there's no resources, then where are the folks supposed to go?
Right. Thank you for sharing that. You started Operation Save Our City after your brother died about 7 years ago.
Yeah, 2012.
Yes. Can you share with us your story and exactly how you started Operation Save Our City?
Sure. So Operation Save Our City was founded in 2012. However, I always tried to elaborate a little bit on how I felt like I should have started it back in 94 as a survivor of an attempted homicide in 94 after being beat and thrown over a bridge and left to die by an ex. And later that day in 94, that same day, my ex had murdered my then boyfriend, Talbert Jackson. So I always wanted to do something, but at 16 years old, I didn't know how to start a movement. And even after the suicide of my identical twin sister, Kathleen Pichardo, suffered a self-inflicted gunshot wound because she was allowed access to a firearm while suffering from mental illness. So there was an opportunity back then to start something, but I just didn't know how. And finally, when my brother was murdered and the case continued to be unsolved and there was no answers, I felt like I was obligated and needed to do something to provide services that I did not get as a survivor, and for my mom and for my family. Like there were things that we didn't understand in the system that we had to navigate ourselves. So we wanted to make things easier for families who were affected by gun violence, how to navigate the system, whether it be talking to the DA if that was to come, or the flyers, or giving folks a social media platform to voice their just kind of share their photos of their loved ones and kind of bring awareness to cases that are unsolved. So I felt like I needed to do something and not, I mean, you can't really mourn forever, right? You gotta get past it at one point. If not, I mean, you could mourn and still be active and do something to be part of the change and not to sit around and do nothing.
Yeah. Well, that was a story. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad that you took your trauma and turned it into something so great, and you're helping so many people. So you said you do posters, you help families. What else does the organization do?
So a lot of folks don't understand the court system and the language in the courts. So we kind of help families when they're sitting at preliminary hearings or sentencings or during jury selections. So we kind of show them the process, because it can be overwhelming and intimidating. In two senses, intimidating with not knowing the language in the proceedings, but also intimidating in a sense where you're in the same courtroom as the defendant's family. So what does that look like for a family? Sometimes you got some defendants who defendants' families who want to be intimidating, so tries to sit next to the family, and that's where we come along and say, well, as victim advocates, we would like for you to go sit on your side of the courtroom. So sometimes things like that, even sitting with a mom, picking out the clothes that their loved one's going to wear for the funeral. Just sitting with her, talking with her, or with the father, whoever's in the space. But I also find that so after my brother's death, a lot of men don't really grieve like women do. A lot of men, I find that don't want to cry or don't want to show emotion, and that was my dad. So my dad was one of those when my brother was murdered. Was very angry. So when we talk about the ripple effect of gun violence, a year to the date after my brother was murdered, my dad literally went to sleep and just never woke up. So so trauma I know so much about, and try to bring awareness that it's okay to cry. It's okay to show emotion. It's okay to feel what you feel, and bringing awareness not only to families and moms, but to the boys and the men in our community who think that it's not okay to cry, when it's okay to cry when you suffered such loss. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your work and for sharing with us today. I want to introduce Gilberto Gonzalez to the audience. So Gilberto is a documentary filmmaker, community activist, and graphic designer at the Community College of Philadelphia. And he was named one of Delaware Valley's most influential Latinos for 2013 by the Philadelphia Multicultural Affairs Congress. And now he's the producer of the film series Get Woke Philadelphia. And part of that series is a film that features Rosalind. So I want to ask, how did you find out about Rosalind, and why was it important for you to make a film about her and her work surrounding gun violence in Philadelphia?
Thank you for having me on the show. I met Roz, I think, through Bilal Qayyum, the Father's Day Valley Committee. They were having a meeting in West Philly. And I think Roz and myself were the only two Latinos, I think, at that meeting. And we just, like, after the meeting, we gravitated to each other because, and when we said, well, there need to be more Latinos here because violence impacts our community too. So that's how we met. And then we've just been connecting in various ways throughout the last few years, through her march, documenting her march and a lot of her efforts. Folks have said, she's like sometimes she does it alone, and it's pretty amazing. I'm sorry, what was your other question?
What made you decide to make a film about her and her work with gun violence? Yeah.
Right. So so one thing that happens in Philadelphia is that a lot of people, there are a lot of awards, right? Advocates for education, anti-violence advocates, or all these awards, but the problems get worse. Right, so the film I did before this was about the oldest Puerto Rican gang in Pennsylvania that goes back generations, probably almost about 100 years, 80 to 100 years, in the Spring Garden community, which most people forget that was the original barrio. So I've just been wanting to document my community more. So. Again, with all this stuff happening, all these people getting awards, and the problems are getting worse. And then, I know people like Roz that do the work, that walk the streets, know the community, and she could probably talk a little bit more about this. I feel like the city doesn't engage her enough. She knows, she has the relationships that can help solve a lot of the problems and give direction to a lot of these leaders, but they don't. So I felt that documenting her story and other stories will help get this message out to the people that it needs to get to.
Thank you. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Rosalind Pichardo and Gilberto Gonzalez, and we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be right back.
All the families of homicide victims, and we're just out here trying to get justice and getting answers, and we just keep doing it in a large way. We have a lot of families out here, and we're their voices, so we're not giving up.
I'm Dina. I'm here with my boyfriend, Jay Rivera. He was shot on December 5th. He died on December 20th. I'm here to get justice. They actually caught my boyfriend's killer, so I'm here to support all these other families because I know what it's like to lose a loved one.
3 months, 12 days. April 10th, he was shot and killed on B in Allegheny. I'm still feeling the pain.
It's just hard, you know?
It is hard. This is something that's really...
One day you talk to him and the next day he's not here.
You know what I mean?
I just want whoever did it to come forward so that, you know, we can sleep at night and we have a peace of mind, you know. And it's not fair that this person can live their life and have fun and like nothing happened while we all here suffering and going through it. I miss my brother every day, and it's really, really hard. I miss him more than anything, and nothing in this world could bring him back.
My name is Ozzy Molina. You know, I miss my brother dearly. There's gonna have a hole. There's gonna be a hole in my heart for the rest of my life.
So that was a short clip from Gilberto Gonzalez's documentary, part of Get Woke Philadelphia. Yeah, hard to watch.
Hard to listen to.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking. But thank you for giving a voice to these people and these families who are affected by gun violence. What was it like working with these people and filming, you know? Yeah, I know it's a big question, but yeah.
We have to know.
Let me pull myself together.
Yeah.
It was pretty hard. You know, it's hard. It's difficult to hear these stories, and you know, it's right in my community. And sometimes I feel like, and that's why like with Roz, like I love working with Roz and connecting with Roz because she gives hopes to these families. You know, she really kind of like gets them working, you know, instead of like just crying and, you know, crawling up into a corner, you know, they're out there saying, you know, no, someone's got to hear this. Someone's got to hear us. So videotaping and documenting these stories are so important. And that's why I'm grateful you guys put it out there too, because the more people that hear it, the more people that listen, hopefully the people, the decision makers can make the right decisions. But it's difficult. It's really, really hard. I mean, I cry a lot.
Yeah, that was hard. You guys couldn't see in here, but Roz and Gil were taking off their headphones, couldn't even really listen to that. But like you said, the decision makers need to make the right decisions. And in the documentary, Roz, you also mentioned that the legislators can't see on the streets exactly what is happening. So what are you seeing on the streets of Philadelphia, and what are you learning from spending so much time with these families and helping them that the legislators can't see from behind a desk?
I see how easy accessible is, how people can get a gun. I can see how easy it is for people to people in certain positions to turn a blind eye. I see that a lot. I see how people just pretend our city, Kensington, don't exist. I mean, I can see that nobody wants to fight for us, and we have to do it ourselves. Even if we put names out there and hold our politicians accountable, I mean, you can't sit around and allow this gentrification to happen and all this money coming into the community, but yet our people who live there are suffering. And every day we're seeing people who are shot up. Young kids are getting younger and younger. Now we have like pregnant moms getting shot, little babies getting shot. Just recently, Olivia Morgan case is solved, but there's still more folks out there wanted for the murder, accessory to the murder, and it's heartbreaking to hear the mom's voice, and overwhelming to hear her say she would never see her baby girl again. So it's like they need to see that. They need to come down here and see for themselves.
I agree. And as opposed to them just coming down, which they should do to see what is going on in, you know, their communities, what else can they do? Like, what are some of the decisions, and both of you can answer to this, that they can make?
So, I mean, there's policies all the time in Harrisburg when it comes to possession and how easy it is to get weapons, and especially AR-15s, AR-13. How easy it is. And they need more buyback. I mean, once we have a buyback program, especially in a place that's suffering, people will be willing to sell their guns for some money or cards, you know, gift cards or whatever, you know, and it's so easy to get it. Like, you know, there's been times where I've done this, I've recorded myself a couple years, almost got in trouble, purchasing a firearm, and off the street, and I said, let me show you how easy it is to get a 9 millimeter. It took me 20 minutes to get a 9 millimeter. I knew exactly where to go. I got it, no questions asked. Illegal, 2 clips. I was set. I was set to take somebody's life, and that's how easy it is for a shooter, you know. And that's frustrating, you know. It's frustrating when, you know, you can see this right in front of your face, and people don't see it as a state of emergency when we got hundreds of people dying in our city, and even talking about the overdose crisis. You know, I'm a resident of Kensington. There's absolutely no reason why, as a resident, that has, you know, I have 2 kids, well, they're older, that I should be out there like a first responder. I am not a EMS worker, but yet I've reversed 134 overdoses in my community, plugged up 1 gunshot wound. I'm not an EMS worker, I'm a resident. And if they don't see the crisis in that, then there's a problem. There's a problem when state officials and people who need to be held accountable are not doing anything. There's a problem.
It's amazing what you're doing and filling in these roles that should be filled by, you know, the city. If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Rosalind Pichardo, founder of Operation Save Our City, and Gilberto Gonzalez, documentary filmmaker and creator of film series Get Woke Philadelphia. I think we're going to take a short break, but we're on People Power Lunch Hour at Philly Cam. And yeah, we're going to come right back, so stay tuned. And yeah, you're watching Philly Cam TV and WPPM 106.5.
I know it's hard not to, though. It's so hard not to.
Okay, welcome back to the People Power Lunch Hour. We're talking to Rosalind Pichardo of Operation Save Our City and Gilberto Gonzalez, creator of the film series Get Woke Philadelphia. So, Gilberto, we want to ask, you were talking before about how Rosalind and her work doesn't get enough attention, and so when you're making this film, who were you thinking of for the audience? Like, who, and how do you want this film to be used? Yeah.
Well, I would like for first of all, for it to just for everyone to have access for it. But in particular, I wanted to reach and we talked about it earlier, the decision makers, right? People that need to know, that make decisions that impact our communities, and a lot of times are making decisions and they're not completely informed. So this film should give them an insight. I mean, and you get emotional watching it. Should be a wake-up call to them that maybe they, city officials should be meeting with folks like Roz that are on the front lines of the battle of gun violence, opiate epidemic, people that are in the trenches every day working with these issues, and they do it with little or no money. That's what you have to realize. And Roz knows a bunch of people. I know a bunch of people like Britt, this guy named David. The list of people that work in the neighborhoods is long, and they work with no funding. But at the same time, the decision makers give money to organizations that do very little to nothing. And that has to change. And then policymakers need to look at that.
So how do we get them to watch it? I know a lot of the time like films are made and the people who really need to see it don't, right? They don't come to the theater or to the screening. How do you see that happening? And also, I mean, can we use the film to raise money? Like, what's the life and
I'm gonna, I mean, like with, for example, 2OG films, it won awards in Miami, Las Vegas. It got little support in Philadelphia because, like Roz said, right, there's two Phillies, one that's known and one that people really don't want to hear about. So people didn't really want to hear about this Puerto Rican gang that actually protected the neighborhood. Actually, I mean, one of the gang members was my babysitter. I mean, it's like people don't like to hear that. They want to, they think that everything is. So it didn't get a lot of support in Philly, but it got a lot of support everywhere else. So I'm hoping with this series to really just kind of, I mean, once it's official, I'm going to email it to all the city officials and say, hey, look, these are the people you need to talk to, because these are the people that walk the streets every day and impact every day and build relationships that you need to really impact and change things. So
absolutely.
Yeah. What do you, from working with these people and on the film, what do you want for people who are listening now, for people to understand about gun violence in Philadelphia?
I think that what they do is they put two groups against each other, people that are for guns and then against guns. But the reality is that no one's talking about illegal guns and how to get the illegal guns out of the street, out of our neighborhoods. I haven't heard those conversations. But you hear all this fight between, gun rights and, we need to create laws like, do a thorough background check. Okay, if you do a thorough background check, what is that going to do for the illegal guns that are on the streets? Nothing.
I think what they need to focus on is the straw purchases. Like right now, you got folks buying these guns for someone and then reporting them stolen. It's evident that if a person continuously reports their firearm stolen, that there's a straw purchase. And hold these folks accountable when they are caught with a firearm that was stolen, and not only charge them with that, but charge them with the federal offense. It's a straw purchase. I mean, anytime you do that, I mean, I'm not anti-gun. I mean, we just want common sense gun laws. That's all we want. I mean, I'm not trying to take nobody's right to bear arms at all. I mean, because everybody has the right to bear arms, but common sense laws it's a good thing if we want to survive. I mean, survive in my community. It's frustrating.
So since they're like, just with the violence, the gun violence, there are a lot of moving parts to that. So how do kids get guns? A lot of our kids in North Philly are being kind of forced into selling drugs. They have no option. You can see their kids sometimes try to get money at the gas stations or do whatever they can to hustle for some dollars to help their parents buy food. So these dealers, they see an advantage here. They take these kids and they put guns in their hands. They put the drugs in it. They get forced into this life. And then, again, there's so many moving parts to it. The other big part that contributes to the violence is the education in Philadelphia needs so much work. And I hear people, I got an award for being an advocate for education. Education is worse today than it was 10, 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
Come on. And it's like, yeah, that contributes to the violence, that contributes to the gun violence. Come on, it's fix the schools, invest the money in the children early. What was the superintendent a few years ago? I forget her name, but she at a conference, she said, if a child is not literate by the 3rd grade, that child has a prison cell waiting by the time they're 18, and that the state, it costs over $80,000 to keep someone locked up, and the school district spends about $15,000 per child per year. There's a value thing here too. It's like you spend $80,000 to lock somebody up yearly, and you spend $14,000, $15,000 on a child in education. there's problems, right? So, and all that contributes to the gun violence, to the violence, to the drugs. So that's why, like I think getting the word out there through these films, and I hope that legislators listen and pay attention and worry more about their constituents than their position.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for creating that film and sharing. And I agree that the education system actually needs a big reform, because you're right. It absolutely adds to the gun violence and to everything that's happening. Students are not educated, and there's not enough systems put in place for them to stay out of the streets. But if you're just joining us, we're here with Rosalind Pichardo, and Gilberto Gonzalez. We're going to take a quick break and play a short clip about some stats on gun violence in Philadelphia. So take a look.
Philadelphia is among the highest of U.S. cities in rates of gun violence. In the 1990s, these statistics peaked when 505 homicides were recorded in the city. While the overall rate of gun violence has declined throughout the years, the city has not seen real long-lasting change, with 317 deaths taking place in 2017 and 351 in 2018. City of Philadelphia Department of Public Health claims a firearm homicide is associated with an estimated $1.42 million in costs relating to medical expenses, lost earnings and productivity, property damage, and criminal justice related costs. Commissioner Richard Ross and Deputy Managing Director of Criminal Justice and Public Safety Vanessa Garrett Harley proposed a plan that established a strategy for gun violence prevention. The plan includes strategies to confront underlying issues contributing to gun violence, such as lack of education, unemployment, drug use, etc., with the hopes of addressing the cycle of gun violence before it begins.
This can be outlined in 4 major ways. Prevention, which aims to help youth from entering the cycle of gun violence through family support services and mentoring programs. Intervention, by creating programs and policies to assist young adults who have been affected by gun violence, such as educational health and drug treatment. Enforcement, which consists of law enforcement practices that interrupt the cycle of violence by focusing efforts on serious or chronic offenders. Reentry, which provides youth and young adults support after release from incarceration, hoping to lower the chances of their return to the cycle of violence, such as job training or educational programs. It is the goal that these 4 key elements, every Philadelphian will be safe from gun violence in their communities, with full access to opportunities to create their path to a fulfilling life. Welcome back to People Power Lunch Hour at PhillyCam TV and WPPM. We're here with Rosalind Pichardo of Operation Save Our City and Gilberto Gonzalez, creator of the film series Get Woke Philadelphia. So this is a question for both of you. We're talking a lot about things I think all relate to mass incarceration, right? And we're trying to get justice for these families. Your work is, trying to get justice for these families. But what does it mean? What does justice look like for you? Is it, I'm going to leave it at that. What does justice look like for you?
So I am about reform in different levels, right? So let's talk about Donald. So Donald is the person who took Talbert Jackson's life. And attempted to take my life. Now, I'm looking at this from different perspectives. Like, I believe that if you're a juvenile and you've been sentenced to life in prison, that may not necessarily be the right thing, right? But that may look different for every person. For Donald in particular, he should have never gotten out of prison. He only served 15 years for attempted murder. And murder is clearly not enough time when you take somebody's life. He was 17 years old at the time when he committed the homicide. But then, after only serving 15 years and being released, and as a survivor, I was never notified. So I was never able to sit on the panel or the parole to say, do I have a say in this? Because I believe that I would have been able to tell whether he had really felt sorry for what he's done, and he didn't. 3 months after being released, he murdered again by the woman of the name Maria Serrano from Reading, PA. Had 2 children. Also, ironically, was a twin sister. And so, do I believe in reform? Yes. but as a survivor, we should have a say. We should definitely have a say. But I also see juvenile lifers who just came home, who like Kempis Songster and Suave Gonzalez, a lot of amazing folks who come out and do some amazing things. Kempis is speaking across the country about what it was like to be in prison, but also what it's like to have his life back and be part of the change and not part of the problem. Can a mother ever sit in front of another shooter? Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it for the first time 2 weeks ago with comprehensive community healing, where a mother and a shooter sat across from each other and had dialogue. The most amazing thing I've ever seen. Healing is possible, but not everybody deserves to be out of prison either. So we got to look at it from an individual basis and not just a blanket, oh, everybody deserves to be out, because that isn't the case, you know. At least for Donald, it should have never been a case. I think Maria Serrano will still be here today if they would have looked at that differently. So, yeah, you know, and sitting across from him in prison, asking him that question at 16, 17 years old, why did you try to murder me and murder Talbert? His response was, because you and him didn't deserve to live. So that clearly there's a problem, you know. It's not just, you know, hey, sit in prison and think about what you did. No, even in prison, you know, you haven't changed. So we, as survivors, should have that say or be a part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Gil, what about you?
So justice for me is, again, there's so many problems that contribute. There's so many aspects, so many things that contribute to what's happening in this city that I think legislators, executive directors of these mega $1 million nonprofits, they really need to take a look at what they're doing and how it has not been working for the last 20 to 30 years. And they, you know, and again, there are a lot of moving parts to this, but I'll just give you one example of something that goes wrong and where the systems just don't work. If you're in foster care, you reach the age of 18, you're out of foster care. This used to be the case a few years ago, but I don't know what the cases are now. So this young man was out of foster care. He had no place to go to, right? So then an aunt took him in. In order for him to go to college, he needed financial aid. But in order to get financial aid at that age, someone has to claim you in their taxes. He had no relationship with his father, had no relationships with anyone. He was self-supporting himself. He could not get financial aid. He could not go to college. See, so there's part of a system that is broke, that doesn't work for this young man. And I don't know what he's doing, what's happened to him, but at that time he was struggling. But that story just multiplied hundreds and hundreds more times, and different stories, different aspects of it, and that's what's causing all this problem. And I think that people need to think, and I think the people that these legislators need to talk to, people like Roz that are on the front line, they don't talk to them. And that's one of my biggest problems, one of my biggest, and people tell you I go to meetings all over this city and I talk about this and I get shut down many times, is that they need to speak to Roz. They need to, because, you're right, sitting in an office in City Hall, 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day, that does nothing. Mm-hmm. Getting the data, there's this report out about the opiate epidemic, right? And my fiance and I were talking, and we looked at this report and said, there's lies, there's lies, and then there's data, right? So it's like this report was so insane, it didn't make any sense for our community, but yet this is the report the legislators to listen to, rather than the people. So I think there's a disconnect, and I think somehow, some way, we need to start connecting the dots and really impacting. I'm sorry. It's just frustrating sometimes.
I get it. No,
yeah.
You're right. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're watching and listening to the People Power Lunch Hour on Philly Cam TV and WPPM 106.5 FM. We're going to play another excerpt from Gil's documentary featuring Rosalind, and we'll be back to discuss it.
The suspect that once we put his face out there and we knew his name, we began to use a different tactic to kind of bring him out. And we went to his family's house and put mail flyers in his family's mailbox and say, hey, your cousin's wanted, your son is wanted for homicide. There's a $20,000 reward. You need to turn him in. And we just kept doing that. He eventually became angry and shot up my house. So, you know, that's a danger in doing this work. But eventually he was caught. He was caught because he used the same car that he used in the homicide to shoot up my house. And, you know, we ended up having to move for the second time after the second shooting. So, but that comes with the work. And he was caught.
So as you guys heard in that clip, Roz, your line of work comes with a lot of dangers. And I just want to say, I think it's phenomenal that you are willing to even experience stuff like that to help people in your community and save lives and change lives. So thank you so much again. But I think it's important to ask you, how do you engage with self-care? How do you take care of yourself mentally, emotionally? Because you have to be healthy, you know, in order to be able to help everybody else, you know,
So that's a good question. I've been actually practicing a lot of self-care lately. So I have a good support team, a very, very good support team who says, Roz, you need to check out. And I have an amazing support team to say, okay, I'll be back in a couple days. We do a lot of self-care as a group with the Kensington storefront. Catherine Pennerpacker runs the Healing Blanket Project. Lisa Kelly runs this project called The Epidemic. Michael Worthy, CPS worker. It's just a solid core. Brett Carpenter from Philly Unknown. Core folks, even my family, my sister, they keep me in line. I mean, they know that if I'm not right, then I can't do the work,
right.
You know. So, and my kids will be quick to check me too. My boy is like, okay, Mom, you need to take another break. It can be like 1 week into my break, and I come back, and the next day it was like, it wasn't long enough. So it's like, all right. So we do a lot of meditation, lots and lots of meditation, lots of praying, lots of self-care stuff. I don't do the massage thing, but you know, every now and then I'll get my nails done. But yeah, really a lot of reflection when I'm away. You know. And self-care looks different for everybody, right? So I know for me, sirens, the sound of the L train, loud noises affect me. Like 4th of July, I knew because of PTSD that I could not be anywhere where there was fireworks. And that's hard on 4th of July, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, you turn up the AC really loud, you blast the television, and you put the headphones in and you don't hear it. But that's the life of a person who suffers from PTSD and well aware of it, but know that I need to practice self-care in order for me to be effective in my own community. So I always share about self-care. I just did a piece about how people don't focus on crisis responders. I'm not a first responder, but I am a crisis responder. So what does that look like for us? You know, and we have to hold each other accountable, as whether it's police, whether it's SEPTA police, whether it's EMS workers, whether it's store owners who live on Kensington who has to see this on a daily. That is trauma. You know, that's trauma. That's people, social workers at Prevention Point. That's trauma. So how are we going to combat this and take care of ourselves? So holding each other accountable is key, because if I'm jacked up, I'm not taking care of nobody. You know, I'm not going to be effective. And they can feel that energy, you know, when there's something not right, you know. They don't, my sunshines, I call them my sunshines. They don't mind checking me either. I mean, they may be in active addiction, but they know somebody who's, who's always with them and spends 90% of the time. They know when I'm not right either. So I'm like, they know I need a break from them. I love them to death, but every now and then I need a break. And they'll be glad to tell me that. So
good. I'm very happy to hear that you have a strong support system and you're taking care of yourself because we need you. And real quick, I just want to know what is like a piece of advice that you give people who have experienced loss and trauma of a loved one? What is something that you tell them initially?
Yeah. Feel what you're feeling. Allow that process to happen. Don't stay in it too long, and just be as loud as you can, whether it's on the bullhorn, whether it's writing stuff on Facebook, whatever it is, be heard.
Okay. Yeah. Be heard. Thank you.
I was also going to ask Gilberto, how do you engage with self-care as a documentary filmmaker, engaging with this work? Because I also think it's important for you, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
I think I'm learning now. I think my fiance is helping me with that. So, because you do get engrossed in this, and it's kind of hard to detach, and you always, it's like and Ross can tell you, it's like you're on speed constantly on the phone making, and it does get crazy. So luckily I have a fiance who is starting to, kind of push me and say, Gil, you need to turn everything off and just shut down for a little bit. And I've been doing that, and it's hard in the beginning, but then halfway through it, it's kind of like I find that place where I'm okay. So yeah, you do. I'm learning how to do it.
Yeah, it's a process.
It is a
learning
process, but it's important.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we're here with you.
Yeah,
Gil. We want to know real quick. We're already almost done here. Can't believe it. But can you tell us what is the future for Get Woke?
The series is gonna be focused on grassroots community leaders like Raz and Israel Moreno, Julio from West Philadelphia, David. His name escapes me right now. But I'm focusing on the people on the ground that do the real work, and get their stories out there. So we're just doing a couple of showings, just to kind of get the feel and maybe do some more editing. And then we're going to send it to the film festivals. We're going to send it to, like the 2OG film went to a lot of the colleges in the area, Temple, University of Pennsylvania, Community College, Arcadia University. So we'll push them to the colleges and universities. And then, we'll do the big push to try to get it to the political leaders, to the people that make the decisions. And hopefully we can nudge them in the right direction.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Yeah. And then there'll be like community screenings, like for people who are in the film too, who want to see, or yeah.
So if I can I say we're doing a screening on August 17th at Nara Square Park, Hancock and Diamond. It's in Kensington. We're going to be screening them kind of like with the film called Quest, which is an amazing film about a family, and the filmmaker just did an incredible job. So we're going to be doing a screening there, and we're going to have Raz and Israel and the family from the Quest film all there. And then after showing the films, we're all going to have conversations about the projects and hopefully, start to impact the community.
Amazing.
So
I'm excited.
So can I say the date again?
Oh yes, please.
Give
August
us all the info.
17th, August 17th at 8:00 at night at Norris Square Park in Kensington, which is Hancock and Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Nar Square Park in Kensington.
Yep.
August 17th.
Yep.
8 o'clock.
We'll repeat that at the end
Yeah,
too.
we will. We have to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
And Roz, what is the future of Operation Save Our City? What's in store?
So we recently was given a space above the Kensington storefront. So hopefully we'll start programming there. until then, I'll keep hitting the streets like I've been doing.
Awesome. And could you please just elaborate what you mean by programming?
So we're going to be doing a lot of self-care stuff for
Awesome.
crisis responders. Also programming for those who are in active addiction, safe space, movie night, open mic night, drawing, art, a lot of different things we've already doing at the storefront, but on a larger scale.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems like you're really about encouraging others to engage with this activist work. What does that look like? Like other people in your community, what does that look like?
It is. So every time that we have a march or a rally, the thing that I always do is I always pass the bullhorn. I always want someone to speak. I'll say what I need to say in the beginning, but I want moms to speak. And what they don't realize, a lot of moms and sisters and families who've been affected, that once you give that person that bullhorn, you're giving them that voice, right? That platform. And now they don't even realize they have it until they're on that bullhorn. I'm like, well, I didn't know I can do that. I didn't know I can feel this. I didn't know that I could even stand up in front of hundreds of people and say what I'm feeling, and that we want justice. Since Operation Save Our City has been, since I founded it, I've found mothers who've created their own organizations, Kind and Justice, National Homicide Justice Alliance, Race for Rhythm Foundation. We have a lot of organizations being built because of our works and our willingness to stand up for our loved ones and not be silent. So I'm always trying to encourage people, don't count on me. I mean, my plate's full. So try to create your own thing so that, you can have somebody create their own thing. So now we have a group of moms who don't take no crap, who are on the front lines, and families. I keep saying moms, but it's a lot of sisters as well.
Right.
So yeah.
What kinds of advice do you give, like, those people who want to start their own groups or organizations to help their, I don't know.
Just do it. I mean, just do it. I mean, what's the worst going to happen? Oh, it didn't
Pan out.
Nothing happened. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. It's not everybody's built for this kind of work, and that's okay. That's all right. I mean, I know moms who don't want to even speak, but they can cook some good food for the group. You know what I'm saying? So it takes a village. So that's how we support one another. We find out our strengths and our weaknesses, and we work together.
There are so many different ways to be an activist and to engage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you both so much for your work in the city and everything you're doing. Before we go, can you both give us a little bit information about how people can reach you, get in contact with you, stay in touch, follow you, and just be involved in what you're doing for our community?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Gilberto Gonzalez, because I'm also a visual artist, so I post a lot of my paintings. So they can get me in touch through social media. My email is all spelled out, 3 rings with an S, 1 @gmail.com. They can also call my cell, which is 267-251-9809, and half the city has it, so I don't mind sharing it.
For me, it's Operation Save Our City on Facebook, or R-O-Z Pichardo on Facebook. My cell number is 856-745-6045. Instagram, Operation Save Our City, and email is operationsaveourcity@gmail.com, one word.
Awesome. And
one more thing.
Yes.
I also work at community college, so they can also call my number there, which is 751-8044.
Great.
Awesome.
Great. Did you say there are events coming up with Operation Save Our City, or?
No, just a screening. I mean,
okay.
we just do the normal sit
Got
with
it.
families
Together.
Got
Okay.
it.
and sit through court systems, that kind of thing.
And your last message, your last words to everybody listening. What do you want everyone to know and to take away from this conversation that we've had today? I know they already got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, just be heard. Don't be silent and speak up for your loved ones because, you do it better than anybody else.
That's right.
And get involved. Because if you don't, nothing's going to happen. Everyone should get involved. The more of us that are together, the more impact we can make.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening. We want to thank again Rosalind Pichardo and Gilberto Gonzalez for coming on today. You've been listening and watching the People Powered Lunch Hour here on Philly Cam TV and WPPM 106.5. We are live every week, Wednesdays at 12 p.m., 12 to 1 p.m., and you can tune in on TV. You can listen on the radio, or you can watch us online at phillycam.org. And that's about it today. Thank you.
That's it for today. All right. Thank you so much.
Philadelphia is among the highest of U.S. cities in rates of gun violence. In the 1990s, these statistics peaked when 505 homicides were recorded in the city. While the overall rate of gun violence has declined throughout the years, the city has not seen real long-lasting change, with 317 deaths taking place in 2017 and 351 in 2018. City of Philadelphia Department of Public Health claims a firearm homicide is associated with an estimated $1.42 million in costs relating to medical expenses, lost earnings and productivity, property damage, and criminal justice-related costs. Commissioner Richard Ross and Deputy Managing Director of Criminal Justice and Public Safety Vanessa Garrett Harley proposed a plan that established a strategy for gun violence prevention. The plan includes strategies to confront underlying issues contributing to gun violence, such as lack of education, unemployment, drug use, etc., with the hopes of addressing the cycle of gun violence before it begins.
This can be outlined in 4 major ways. Prevention, which aims to help youth from entering the cycle of gun violence through family support services and mentoring programs. Intervention, by creating programs and policies to assist young adults who have been affected by gun violence, such as educational health and drug treatment. Enforcement, which consists of law enforcement practices that interrupt the cycle of violence by focusing efforts on serious or chronic offenders. Reentry, which provides youth and young adults support after release from incarceration, hoping to lower the chances of their return to the cycle of violence, such as job training or educational programs. It is the goal that these 4 key elements, every Philadelphian will be safe from gun violence in their communities, with full access to opportunities to create their path to a fulfilling life.